You are listening to 95.7 FM WELT, Fort Wayne, Radioactive. The opinions and views expressed in this show are those of the hosts and guests only. They do not represent those of FreeThought Fort Wayne, WELT, or any other organization. Welcome to the Hoosier Humanist Hour, where we explore science, religion, culture, ethics, and community from the humanist perspective. Join us as we discuss those topics and more, free from the ideologies of religion and superstition.
It's that time of the week again, your favorite time of the week. It's the Hoosier Humanist Hour. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dee. I'm here with V, Christopher, and Andrew, and we'll be talking about all kinds of interesting topics. We are brought to you by FreeThought Fort Wayne. Well, we're not brought to you by that, but we are part of that organization. And we're basically a secular group that likes to think about things outside of superstition. And we have lots of different opinions on topics, and you'll hear some of them tonight. I think the big topic on everybody's mind is politics. We got Trump versus Clinton. We just saw the debate. It was very interesting, and we probably could talk a whole hour about it, possibly. We'll see. What about you, V? Did you watch the debate?
Oh, yeah, I watched the whole thing. And, of course, if we run out of things to talk about, we can always talk about space.
Oh, yeah. Well, it almost feels like we're talking about space when we talk about politics sometimes.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a good debate. I thought it was a very, very good debate. Two very, very different people on stage with very, very different views. So it was definitely interesting to watch. Did everybody else see it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I just saw bits and pieces and highlights, so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you didn't watch the whole thing?
No, I haven't had time.
Oh. I tried to log on to watch it online, not watch it on television. I had a hard time connecting. I had to end up just listening to it. I watched a little bit of it, but ended up connecting through probably like WoWo or something. I don't know, to listen to it.
I heard that something like 18.5 million people watched it on Facebook. I don't know if they watched it or like commented live on Facebook, but they were engaged. Like 18.5 million people were directly engaged on Facebook during the debate. So that's a lot of people. And potentially over 100 million people watched it, which is insane. I
actually thought it would have been higher than that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think this campaign is like mesmerizing to watch. Whether you take one side or the other, or you're just looking at it from a totally neutral perspective, it just is really fascinating for me. So I guess I expect everybody to find it fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, people tuned in for the show. I think some people may have expected blood. I mean, I saw, I don't know what channel it was, but they showed one of the channels how they advertised the debates. And I mean, you would think they were getting in the octagon and they were about to put on the gloves and spar. Like that's how this debate was advertised on TV. So it's no joke. Those guys were out for blood kind of thing.
I can think of one thing right off the top that I was impressed with was, I think particularly on the conservative side, there's been a lot of hubbub about like Hillary having an illness that could be, make her like unqualified to be president. And so I think a lot of people were watching this debate to see if they could see any sign of that. And I was pretty convinced she looked damn healthy to me. So
she looked pretty good. I actually sent a message to my girlfriend that her makeup artist was phenomenal that day because, man, she didn't have a wrinkle on her face.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah.
And I mean, she's a 70-year-old woman. Like that's, that's a good makeup artist. Not that matters, but just something I noticed.
Yeah.
But she definitely looked healthy, If anything, Donald Trump was, having a little thing in his throat. He kept clearing his throat and stuff like that. So, a lot of people noted that online.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't notice it. No.
I noticed it a little bit, but my wife was really bothered by it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could even see like there's things on YouTube where they showed like a whole succession of him just constantly doing that, and It's quite a bit. It's quite a bit. But I mean, again,
That's funny.
I'm not bothered by their health status, to be honest. I mean, Kennedy was, from what I understand, back in the day, was a complete wreck when he was president. Like, his health was awful. He was kept up by, multiple pills and doctors and all that just to be able to get through the day, kind of thing.
Wow.
From different pains and ailments and illnesses and all that. So, I don't know. They both seem healthy to me, but who knows? It's not like they're going to come out and say what they have.
They seemed healthy in mind, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
What about you, Andrew? Did you walk away convinced that Hillary looked pretty healthy? Like it's a non-issue now?
Well, I don't know. I've been concerned about her health, especially at the 9/11 incident where she basically fell and was thrown into a van. I still am worried about it, mainly because, I'm worried about both of them because this is the first time we've ever had two people this old running for president. Like, the only two people that actually have a shot of getting into the White House are 69 and 70 years old.
They don't look old to me, though. But they don't.
Well, there are times when Hillary and Donald and Trump, I don't know. I've seen videos of them where they just look like they're getting confused. Old age stuff coming on, and it's like they're both, in my personal opinion, terrible.
Oh, I agree with you there. Well, one thing that is interesting, with candidates this old, their youth was back in the 50s and the 60s. They're a product of those eras. So in terms of, the baggage that they're bringing and all that is from those times, which are very far removed from today, where, someone like Obama, someone like some of the other candidates that ran, like, for example, on the Republican side, like Marco Rubio, he's a pretty young guy. Like, they would be bringing baggage from the 70s and 80s, and I personally would rather have somebody younger. From what I understand, whoever is elected will be either the oldest or the second oldest president that we've ever elected.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It is kind of crazy. Maybe it just shows how old I'm getting too. They don't seem very old, once you start to get close to their age, then you feel like, hey, look at that 60-year-old young buck.
Yeah. But one thing you got to understand, they both are wearing makeup. Like, I mean, Trump is a guy, but I guarantee you that anytime he's on TV, he's had some makeup put on him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm absolutely certain of that. So they deliberately don't look their age, kind of thing, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So, can I just ask maybe about everybody's opinion as to who won before we dive into any details, at least what your opinion may have been on that? Chris?
Ask me first. My opinion going into the debate was my opinion coming out of the debate. And I know that's probably a bias, but as much as I tried to fight it, I couldn't help but concluding the exact thing that I expected.
Well, what is that?
That's because I got to go and see Trump in person when he came to the Coliseum. And
that's right.
I just, oh my gosh. I pictured in my head the Bill Nye and Ken Ham debate. And that's exactly what I saw.
That is a very good comparison, actually. I hadn't thought of that, but I like that comparison.
Because Ken Ham was very sensationalistic. His arguments were cyclical, and he really didn't say much, even though he was talking the entire time. And I feel like the exact same thing happened during the debate, that Trump was talking the entire time and saying very little next to nothing. And yet somehow the crowd loved him for it.
So are you walking away, though, that maybe Trump won that debate then? Like, I know you have your own personal opinions, but like from a more objective standpoint, did you feel like one walked away with the advantage?
And that's the thing, is that it certainly started out like that, to where the cheers were only for Trump. But then towards the end, Hillary was getting more cheers than Trump was.
Huh.
At least that's what I perceived.
Yeah.
Once again, that could be my bias, but even though the crowd was told to shut up, they certainly didn't listen.
Right.
So
What about you, V?
Well, I have a little bit of a different view. You know, just like from my personal standpoint, I thought that Clinton did a lot better. She looked presidential. She behaved well. She hit her talking points, all that. You know, she spoke with specifics where I didn't hear that from Trump. But, you know, what I was, again, just chatting with my girlfriend, I was telling her, you know, there was two very different audiences that were listening. You know, there was one audience that is very much excited by the way Trump handles debates and questions and the way he acts and all that. And that's why he defeated 16 other Republicans. And, you know, he went through debates with other Republicans and he came out on top because of that exact same style that he had, you know, among those debates. Like other Republicans on stage, you know, spoke with more specifics. They had better arguments, had more experience, all that. But Trump knows how to talk to a particular part of the electorate that listens to that. That's what they want. You know, they're in the never Hillary camps. They're in the, you know, they're swayed by these by feelings more than facts. And so in that sense, you know, I think for people that were going to vote for Hillary, thought that Hillary won. People that were going to vote for Trump thought that Trump won. And I don't know how it went for independents and undecided people. Like, I really am not certain. I don't know. I think it's close. Because even among independents and undecideds, you know, Hillary's popularity is very low. And, you know, they may just say, hey, we don't want a politician. And what we saw is someone that is just not a politician. You know, they maybe didn't expect him to have the answers on how to fight ISIS. They maybe didn't expect him to know every single player in Al-Qaeda, you know. So to them, the fact that he didn't speak with specifics may not matter.
Yeah,
that's certainly something that my wife and I discussed after the debate too, is definitely getting at that point that even though we felt like there was a clear winner, we also feel like the people who supported Hillary before are going to be supporting Hillary after. And the same thing with Trump. And that the debate made minimal impact overall.
Yeah, I think people are pretty much set in what they're going to do.
Yeah.
This whole election season has been so polarizing.
Yeah.
Like it's already decided pretty much. And it is really close. But I mean, judging by like the crowds that the two candidates gather, if you compare and contrast, Trump is filling, you know, tens of thousands of seats, and Clinton is lucky to get a few hundred.
Yeah.
At the rallies they've been holding. So it just seems like Clinton is kind of whatever, I'll vote for her, whatever, you know. And Trump is just gathering all this enthusiasm, and there's been a lot of people switching from Democrat to Republican. I've read a bunch of stories. It's all across the United States. They're switching parties to just to vote for Trump. And I don't really hear any of that. I don't hear any of that for Clinton, or very little.
I don't see any bumper stickers. I don't see very many at all, like advertisements for president, you know, yard signs and that sort of thing. But I do see more Trump than I do see Clinton.
Yeah. There's definitely an enthusiasm gap. I mean, there is no doubt about that. There is an enthusiasm gap.
Yeah.
One interesting comparison that I saw, just to hit on that point a little bit, was there, and I only caught part of it on TV. They were talking about when Michael Dukakis ran for president, and it was Michael, right? It was Dukakis was his last name. And I hadn't seen any of the debates and things like that before, but just from what they showed, he was, I want to say, kind of similar to Clinton. He didn't show too much emotion. He was very matter of fact, even on real difficult issues like, I guess, some guy had killed someone, and when he was governor, he had pardoned him or something like that, where it was like a big scandal and involved death penalty and all that. And so a very emotional topic. And when they asked him about it on stage, like, he handled it with zero emotion. And I guess that was, something that didn't play well with the public. They wanted to see a little more emotion, a little more, not so robotic of a performance, if you want to call it that. I don't know. And then Clinton is kind of similar to that, where she speaks very matter of fact with little emotion, where Trump is, the exact opposite. He's more of, like Reagan would have been, a lot closer to the people and knowing how to speak to the people, kind of thing.
I would have to say, I would agree with you. I often wonder, though, like, with his message, like, who is listening? I can understand who's listening, but it's just, with Clinton, you kind of know what you're going to get because we've had it. With Trump, you have no idea what you're going to get.
Yes.
Like, he is such a wild card, and unless he has, like, some very, very specific things that he's going to do, which I haven't been satisfied with his answers. I don't really know what he's going to do or what he's capable of. All I know is that he's, from what I've seen of him on television and, the media prior to this, he's kind of a wild ball. He's kind of a loose cannon in some ways. So I have to imagine that would be brought to bear in his personality as a president. So I don't know. But the funny thing to me, though, is that quality that he has is so popular right now because people do not care. They want change. Right. And they will take him over what has been going on for any. I don't think it matters who. I mean, Trump was probably just the only one who could get there. Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, I get the impression that Trump has a really, really good chance of winning. And I am not going to vote for him, but I'm just amazed that I get the feeling that he's going to win. Or has a very good chance of winning, and that scares the bejesus out of me because the world is such a fragile place right now.
Yeah. Well, Michael Moore, today came out with a statement that, in his opinion, Trump won the debate and he has a very good chance of winning the election. Wow. I mean, Michael Moore has been wrong before. Let's, he's not some kind of prophet there. But sure. You're not the only one that thinks that. There's a lot of this anti-establishment, and he certainly isn't the establishment. And he hit on some very emotional points in the debate. When he talked about Carrier, when he talked about jobs leaving, and he hit on Hillary for, well, why haven't you done this? You've been in politics for 30 years. So those are very, very emotional subjects, and they hit hard in some of the swing states like Ohio, like, Indiana, like, the Midwest that's lost so many jobs to globalization, and on NAFTA, he hit pretty hard on NAFTA.
Indiana's not a swing state, is it? Indiana's pretty much, going to probably vote for Trump, right?
Well, it went Obama. It went Obama the first year, I think. So,
yeah, Indiana's pretty much a red state, and I'm sure it's probably going to go that way this time too. Obama was kind of a fluke. He flipped a lot of states around.
That's true. That's true. Well, but anyhow, Michigan, Ohio, other places,
Sure,
some of the
sure. Oh, yeah.
coal states and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't mean to belittle your point. I think it makes perfect sense.
No,
I was just wondering
yeah.
if Indiana was a actual swing state. I wasn't sure about that.
And
So-
technically, I don't think it's considered, but I don't know.
Sure. Okay, so I got a question for you guys.
Okay.
Little thought experiment. If Hillary wins, we're going to be like, okay, just go about our business, see what happens, no big deal. Life goes on as normal. If Trump wins the presidency, will that change anything for you? Like, will you start becoming preppers? I mean, is that not an unreasonable thing to be concerned about?
Well, I have an out, guys. I came from a land far, far away about 15 years ago. So if push comes to shove, my family still owns some property back there.
Really? You're going to actually leave the United States?
I'm kidding.
Yeah, you should have just stayed over in Europe during your vacation, and you would have been fine.
Yes, I came back from the
That's
UK.
right.
Yeah. No. I mean, I wouldn't prep to leave or anything like that. I don't know. I doubt it'll be some kind of a disaster. But I am worried. What's going to happen? It's just so unpredictable. With the standard, Republican, Democratic candidates, you kind of know what to expect. Businesses know what to expect. This, I don't know.
Well,
it's difficult.
You have him talking about changing our alliances.
Oh yeah.
You have him talking about the Federal Reserve and basically questioning the policy of the Federal Reserve, which is very, very ingrained in society right now. Changes in that make a huge difference. What else is he talking about? He's talking about our trade relations with China, which is huge.
Sure.
There's all kinds of things dominoes that could start from the other side of the oceans and work our way here. In fact, I'd be hard pressed to see how we wouldn't have those dominoes coming this way. But if it looks like he's going to win, so it's hard to tell what that means. That's those are really, really big things.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in all honesty, though, he is right to point out some of the, trade deficits that we have. You could see that as, China, quote unquote, winning. When you see some of the jobs that are flowing out of the country, he's right to point out those things. It's just that, the way that he wants to solve these things is totally wrong, in my opinion. And then just, in a lot of cases, just identifies the problem, but doesn't really say how to solve it. Well, that doesn't help anyone. We all know what the problems are, Yeah. I don't know if I just made any sense or not.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Andrew, Chris, have any opinions on this topic? Nope.
No.
Yeah. So, on to the debate. My perspective was that it actually was one of the most divided on the right and left debate I'd ever seen. It's there's not a lot of middle ground between the two. It's Trump is all for free markets, and I got the impression that he wants free markets more or less, and that the greatest good comes from free markets. Is that a fair point?
I think so.
And then Hillary on the other side was not that she's against free markets, but more control, government, controlling and regulating things and making sure the middle class is growing and, more involved. And those are pretty polar topics for a lot of people. It's hard to sway people who already have their mind made up on one side of that argument to switch. So
absolutely.
The polarity of this particular race is really fascinating. I'm curious to see who wins because it's going to really show where we are in America. Are we really starting to move more to a more progressive side, or are we still really conservative? I think.
you could definitely see Hillary, when she talked about taxes and stuff like that, trying to appeal a little bit to the Bernie supporters.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about the rich have to pay their fair share, and a couple other things that she snuck in there, which I appreciate because I like Bernie. But yeah, let's just give a concrete example out there. Trump said that he wants to reduce the taxes businesses pay to 15%.
Mm-hmm.
Where Hillary talked about, increasing tax on the wealthy to pay their fair share, basically. So, that's about as polar opposite as you can get. One wants to raise taxes on the rich, one wants to lower them by a lot. I think Trump was talking about decreasing them from 35 to 15, I think is what he referenced. That's a 20% cut. Yeah.
As a business owner myself, I'm all sure if you want to lower my taxes that much, it seems a bit ridiculous, but it would be very beneficial to me for sure. Right. And I'm assuming it would trickle down to my employees as well, because I'm a generous guy.
Here's the crazy thing, though. Yeah, that would benefit small businesses for sure. Like you shouldn't have to pay those kind of high taxes. But when you look at some of the bigger companies out there, they're not paying anywhere near the taxes that you are paying. They're not paying anywhere near the taxes that we as regular people are paying. Hillary brought up the 2 years of tax returns that we have for Trump. He paid 0 in federal tax.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, that's just smart business.
Yeah.
Yes, that was his comment about it.
Well, it is. As a small business owner myself, I try to take advantage of the laws of the land. And one of the advantages of owning a business is that you pay yourself a fair wage for what you do for the business. But as much profit as you can take reasonably, you take that from through distributions from the company, dividends, and you do that because they're taxed differently.
Yes.
So you take a fair wage, and you try to be as honest about that as you can, and then the rest, as much as you can reasonably do, you take as dividends, and you save a lot of money. As a business owner doing that.
Yeah, at my current job, I'm a contractor, so basically, I'm my own employer, and I'm not through a contract agency or nothing. The company I work for directly does business with me, and they're about to hire me direct, so it doesn't matter. But I was just about ready to open up my own company, and I consulted with an accountant, and that's exactly what you just said. Is exactly what the guy told me. You take so much in salary. That's kind of sort of representative of the job that you're doing. And then, what you're getting paid beyond that, you take as a distribution because it's taxed so much less.
Right.
Because, as a contractor, I pay a lot more in Social Security tax because normally the Social Security tax, for example, half of it is paid by the employer, half of it is paid by employee. But me as a contractor, I have to pay the whole thing myself, so basically I pay double what everybody else pays, or sees taken out of their paycheck.
Sure.
And see, one thing that I actually kind of wish it wasn't done that way. I kind of wish that it was always the whole thing taken out of the paycheck of the employee, and just that being reflected as a bigger salary that they're taking in. Because I wish people could see the whole amount of tax that is being paid, because right now people don't see that.
Well, there's also there's other portions that they don't see too, besides just Medicare and Medicaid. They got unemployment insurance for the state and the federal government, and depending on what you do, that can be very significant.
Oh yeah, when you pay an employee, let's say $15 an hour, that's not what that employee costs you. That employee, okay, give me an example. Like, you would be a person that would know that. Like, what does an employee cost you versus what you pay them out as a salary?
Well, I just think about it in pretty general terms. I don't have specific numbers for you, but I got to add on workers' compensation, the company's portion of Medicare and Medicaid, unemployment insurance from the federal government and the state government. So that can vary dramatically depending on the type of service you're doing and the risk involved with your work. But it's fairly significant for me. But yeah, that all goes into the calculations of what you can pay a person, and the employee never thinks about that stuff.
Yeah.
So
would you say
there's a lot of other stuff too for other companies, like health insurance and other types of like sick pay and all that sort of stuff that can go into those calculations too, as retirement plans, etc. Anyway,
so
sorry,
would
go
you
ahead.
say that an employee, like if their salary is X, what they cost you is double that?
No, I would say it's more like a 15 to 20% probably increase. So it's not significant. And it depends obviously on the company and what you do. If you have huge offices, then all that's got to get, the cost of doing business has to be incorporated in their total assessed payout for having that employee on your staff.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think if it would, like, if all of it was deducted from the employee paycheck and the employee could see the total cost to the employer, I think it would give a little more clarity to people, and they would be able to make some better choices on, when people talk about taxes and business taxes and all that. I don't know. I just feel like it would clarify things a little bit.
Well, back to the original point was, Trump was, doing some things that, he wasn't skirting the law as a business owner. It's just good business, like Chris was saying. It's just good business as a businessman to make sure you're maximizing that stuff. It's ridiculous to like just give money to the government because of some, moral high road you think you may be taking.
Oh yeah.
So he gets a lot of flack, I think, for that kind of stuff, like the Fort Wayne he did, and I mean anybody would probably do the same thing in those particular situations.
But the other thing is, if you're not breaking the law, if you're just following the law, you're more or less required to take those deductions and whatnots. I mean, if you can't just pick and choose. When I fill out my taxes and they ask me, hey, how much do you pay for rent? Did you pay rent? And I check the box yes in TurboTax, and then they ask me, well, how much do you pay? I paid this much. That deduction is automatically, like, I don't have a choice of not taking that deduction.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know how corporate taxes are and how much, fast and loose they have to play with the rules, and if it's as simple as that. But, if the rules are set up that way, then we clearly need to clean up the rules and not necessarily blame people for taking advantage of the loopholes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the arguments for a flat tax.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
anyway.
I'll give you an example with Bulgaria, where I'm from. They did enter a flat tax. Like, Bulgaria currently has a flat tax. Believe me, it hasn't done anything for the economy. It's still the poorest country in Europe. It's nothing. It didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
So, it's very debatable whether a flat tax would do anything. What it would do is, make sure that, the billionaires are paying, and we know how much they're paying. It would bring clarity. I would argue for more of a kind of like a flat tax, but to be, kind of a little bit curved. If you make over this much money, this is the tax. Between this and this, it's this much, kind of thing. And do away with deductions and things like that, so that everybody is paying their fair share.
Yeah. Well, one day in the future, when they get all this, Bitcoin sort of stuff figured out, maybe they'll go to a flat tax. Just every single exchange of currency.
Yeah.
requires a small tax.
I mean, the thing about it is, usually historically, I think over the last few decades, the federal government has spent something around 20% of the GDP has been, government spending, right? So that has come out of our pocket, out of businesses' pockets. So it's just a matter of where does the money come from? One way or another, it'll come from somewhere. Whether it's going to be a loan from the bank or, our taxes.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's been 1% up, 1% down, but it's got to come from somewhere. And a lot of people are saying that Trump's plan, by slashing taxes by 20% would just blow up the deficit, to unimaginable proportions. I mean, we already have a lot of debt, but the deficit has been shrinking. That kind of tax cut would just skyrocket that.
Yeah.
I think one of them is going to end up using the Federal Reserve for, this is all speculation, to actually print money in ways that are different than what they've done in the past 8 years. Like this QE stuff, they'll make it so that money actually goes into everybody's hands in a different sort of way, like infrastructure spending or something like that. I think whoever is in office is going to spend a ton of money. I don't think it matters which one is in there.
That's true. I mean, yeah, they're just going to spend it on different things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you guys concerned about the debt and deficit and all those things?
I know that this game can go on a lot longer than we realize, but at some point in time, it does matter. Interest rates going back up. I mean, that has a huge difference. Now, the central bank can just keep monetizing. This wheel can keep going.
Right.
And all around the world, it's continuing to go. If we're not, doing QE, then Europe is doing QE and Japan is doing QE, and there hasn't been any sign of being able to revert to back anything that we would consider normal. So it's almost like it's baked into the cake now that we're going to have this kind of central bank money creation going on as part of just the economy. That's a little scary to me. I'm concerned about it. What we're doing now, I don't know if there's any precedent for it in history. So monetary, being reckless with money is just a pastime of the human condition. I mean, we've seen it over and over again throughout civilizations that I don't know what happens, but I've never experienced it, obviously. But I can see how this could just keep on going and accelerating and not reverting back to some sort of normalcy. And what really concerns me about that is that I think the divide between the haves and the have-nots is just going to keep getting stretched further and further apart. Yeah. And eventually it breaks. So yeah, I am concerned about it.
Chris, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm concerned about what Dee was talking about there.
Yeah,
definitely about the widening gap.
I was terrified in 2008 when that all happened. I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is going down. The economy, total collapse, and it freaked me out. And I learned a lot and made me very conspiratorial for a while.
Oh, sure.
Because it's a really big project to take on to really understand. It took me a long time to really understand how our monetary system functions, and I think it is the pinnacle problem of our day. Maybe it might be more important than global warming right now. As
certainly for the short term.
For the short term,
it's definitely the more immediate problem.
But I don't see people paying a lot of attention to it. So we're all committed to this game of just this continuing down this road. And maybe we're doing that because we have no other choice and there's no way out. We just have to go as long as we can. And I think that may be the case. But I don't see anybody, talking about any kind of serious changes because it's not politically possible. I don't know. So here we go. We're going to keep on going. Who knows where this ends?
Yeah.
I guess one of my problems that I had during the debate was when Trump was trying to sit here and say that we are chugging along very slowly in recovering from, the second greatest depression since the Great Depression. which happened around 2007, 2008. And that coupled with his insistence that all these jobs are leaving the country and that unemployment rates are spiraling out of control because of all this outsourcing and automation and whatever, it really bothers me, because when you look at the data, you realize that we've actually returned to the same state that we were in before that depression happened. Through Obama's entire term, 2 terms, we have basically completely recovered.
Yeah.
And I don't understand what he's trying to assert, because people are like, oh, well, we're losing all these jobs. And it's like, we have the lowest unemployment rate since the beginning of this recession.
I think what most people who would sympathize with his argument, and I do in some extent on the greater economy, is that it's paid for with debt that has to be paid back. Like, the federal government has spent $10 trillion in the last 8 years. That basically doubled the national debt. Like, that's all money creation. That's money that if we hadn't spent that $10 trillion, that would have come directly out of our GDP. So that additional debt is what has kept us at just barely stagnating growth speed. So that's why it's scary. We're just going to keep going down this road and printing money more or less to keep the economy growing.
Yeah.
So it's like a false recovery. I guess that's his argument. Now, I'm not taking that side, but I think that's what his argument is.
One thing that we got to realize there is, when you look at where a lot of that money went, it went into Iraq and went into Afghanistan and the wars. And, I don't feel like military spending is at all stimulating the economy. One tank that costs, hundreds of millions of dollars, and one airplane that costs that much, and the fuel that's required, like those are things that benefit very, very, very small segment. If that money was spent basically on anything else, it would have benefited a lot more people.
Yeah.
So in a way, it is, it is growing it is going into the GDP by, going into defense contractors and things like that. But I don't know how much of that actually benefits the wider society. I feel like it doesn't. I may be wrong, but...
Hold on. Are you trying to... I'm detecting an undertone here that I think you're kind of leaning into this topic of infusing money into NASA as opposed to military. And that, of course, brings us to space. I knew you'd sneak it in somehow.
It's always you, Chris. It's always you, man. But I jump in cheerfully. Yes, space.
Well, I happen to think that would be a much better way to spend our money. Yes.
I agree with you, and that's my dream candidate. I want a candidate like that just says, we are the richest nation in the world. Let's put as much as we can in knowledge and research and science and advance humankind and civilization as far as we can take it. Like, I would vote for that person in a heartbeat, and I would say, spend as much money as you can. Like, let's do this thing. But man, my dream candidate has yet to come along.
Well, part of the reason why that's the case actually is because so few scientists are in government. There's very few engineers, scientists, and stuff like that. I mean, most people that you see in government are businessmen, lawyers, people like that are not scientists. I don't want to say they don't understand the value of basic research, but to an extent, they don't understand the value of basic research. When government canceled the superconducting super collider that was going to be built, I believe, in Texas or somewhere in the U.S. That was going to be basically the equivalent of CERN, if not better.
It was actually going to be bigger than CERN.
It was going to be bigger, yeah. That's short-sightedness.
Yes, it is.
All that research could have been done here, and that research spurs businesses. It grows your economy.
I agree. That's why I can't vote for either one of them. And I'm torn by that, but I I just don't like what either one of them represent. I think it's so short-sighted and the same old thing, and like, let's do this
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
And we're just so stuck in superstition and religion. We think we got it all figured out, and
Yeah.
we don't. It's all right there in front of us for us to take, and we just are slowly finding ways to destroy ourselves. That's what it feels like.
Well, we just need to write in the name Bill Nye on the little ballots, and we'll be good to go.
I'm going to put the science guy.
Well, I mean, I really wish that we would have more scientists, and I don't see it happening. You know, I feel like scientists have so much more morals, and you know, you need to be a lot tougher in politics, and you know, you need to forego a lot of your morals and all that to be in politics. That I don't think scientists and engineers and teachers and professors and the various, you know, philosophers, whatever, you know, would want to jump into politics.
I just don't have the charisma for it, man.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
I'd vote for you. Just wear those cool shirts, man. You get. I think there's enough of the hidden population that would vote for you almost exclusively on that.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I have actually thought about it. Like, would I be able to survive basically in politics? And I'm not sure. I mean, I have a tough skin, but man, when you look at some of the stuff that's written in papers about you by the different media, by different journalists and people with different agendas, and how you get hit with different things. I mean, I don't blame scientists for not wanting to be in politics.
I've learned too.
I don't have a problem with that. That I can handle.
I've learned.
Go for it, man. I'll vote for you.
You got two right here, man. I don't know if you'll get on any other ballots.
Exactly.
I've learned over the years that I am way, way too sensitive to criticism of the work that I do. I could never be a politician. I just would die. Because I could never make everybody happy. And that would be difficult for me, because there would always be people who would get screwed no matter what you do.
I think I've been getting better at that. To recognize that I want to make everybody happy and to kind of stand my ground a little bit more. But even then, like, I want to do work and make everybody happy and all that. And that's just not happening with politics, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you got to hand it to the people who. I have to. Trump made an accusation of Hillary Clinton, or made it public, that he had seen her basically like unloading on somebody behind the scenes at some other event. Did anybody catch that in the debate? Like, just really yelling at somebody.
Yeah, I heard something about it, but I don't know what it's all about.
Well, that's what it seemed like he was implying, at least. And I would not be surprised if Hillary is a tyrant.
She may very well be.
Yeah.
One thing that was very interesting is this Frontline documentary that I watched just after the debates, and they were talking about how Hillary and Trump got to where they got. And one of the things, apparently Hillary was involved in Watergate. Like, she was one of the young apprentice lawyers that was involved in Watergate somehow. And and they had to have a group of lawyers, and they worked in secret doing their investigation and whatnot. And they implied that that's where she learned to be so secretive, and she had gotten hurt on a couple of other occasions, like politically hurt. And so she started doing that kind of, really secretive stuff. And it seemed like that kind of led to her email scandals and all that, 'cause she kind of became this control freak, basically, and wanted to control her environment and the way she worked and the way she got things done. So I wouldn't be surprised if she did actually yell at someone behind stage. I mean, I would not be surprised at all by that.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily a bad quality for a president.
It's just a bad quality for everybody who works for that person.
Yes. Well, I mean, you gotta be able to, as a president, motivate people one way or another and get them to do the job.
Gotta crack that whip. Yeah,
That's right. Or you got to get enough true believers. I don't know if Hillary's got enough of those.
Yeah.
But I did find the debate absolutely mesmerizing. I just really, really enjoyed it. I'm really enjoying watching the show. I have my own personal opinions. I'm not going. I have a hard time endorsing either one of them, so I don't know if I'm going to vote to keep the other person out or not. But but I've been pretty good at being able to separate myself and watch like who's taking the advantage and who's not in certain situations, and just really intrigued at what the outcome will show at the end. The divide between the left and right has never been more visible, I think, in my lifetime.
Oh, it's pretty strong. It's pretty strong these days. And I'm kind of, I don't know. I wonder why that is. I really wonder why that is.
Yeah, me too.
I don't have a good answer. Like the closest thing that I could come with is just the growth of the internet and the echo chamber that you can create for yourself.
Yes.
So basically, I mean, even like news websites will recognize who you are when you go there, and they'll tailor news articles to you. So like your same opinions, your same sources keep reinforcing themselves. And I feel like that's just driving two sides farther and farther apart. That's the best that I could come up with.
Well, that's what I feel like I run into too, is people aren't aware of bias. Like I think it's more important now than ever that we have bias taught maybe 4 years in high school. Like your chemical biases, your cognitive biases, and then, all the cultural biases too, but your chemical biases and cognitive biases, same thing really, are so powerful that if you do not at least appreciate that they're there and what they do to you, I just don't see how you can be convinced.
And the internet reinforces those.
Yeah. Well, that's a bias. What is that bias thing?
I can't think. I think I know the word you're trying to say, but
confirmation bias.
Yeah, confirmation bias. But just to give you a very quick example, my one browser that I normally use at work keeps crashing over the last few weeks. So I switched browsers, and I'll pull up the exact same news website on both browsers, and the news stories are different. The one that I've been using a lot more has a lot more the confirmation bias type articles, the articles that are of the same opinion that I've been reading previously, where the other browser has some very different stuff. They're a lot more varied from more different areas, from, just maybe the only things that were the same were like the top 4 articles. Everything else was different. So,
and that's the thing, like just understanding that very basic notion, or I guess result that you're seeing there, just understanding that and how it works, that can help you start to think, well, maybe if I want to try to remain as unbiased as possible, maybe I should just have my browser clear all the cookies every time it shuts down.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. I don't know how real this observation is for myself. Could be a biased opinion again, but I feel like understanding your bias allows you to go to a biased place and recognize that bias, but still get what information is legit and what is not.
Yeah.
And
that's what it
been
comes
my
down
experience,
to.
But
yeah, and that's what it comes down to, is getting the information. That may not change your bias, but at least, if you can get information from both sides of the story, your bias has more background. It's built on a better foundation.
Yeah, or even too, like the bias to be. I mean, I grew up a conservative very conservative Christian, and I don't know if it was just the environment. I think it was, because I remember talking about this stuff and it being promoted from the pulpit, like this conspiratorial nature to everything. Like there's people behind the scenes manipulating things. If it's not people, then it's spirits. It's the devil. So I have this bias built into me that I am very watchful for now. Like I want to be, it's really easy for me to be paranoid and conspiratorial. I know it's BS. I've totally educated myself out of it.
Right.
But it's still like it's still there, and to some degree, and just being aware of that helps me dramatically. I can't encourage people enough to understand their biases and fallacies. Fallacious arguments.
My girlfriend thinks I'm crazy, but in the car, I listen to WOWO, which is a little more conservative radio station, and I also listen to Catholic radio very often, just to hear what the other side has to say and to try to avoid some of those confirmation biases and all that. I mean, they've never really altered an opinion of mine to, a large extent, but, I get their side. I feel like I have a better understanding of what they're thinking, why they're thinking it. And I feel like I at least get, a little bit more of their point of view.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is hard to understand how a horse feels with the blinders on unless you put the blinders on yourself. That's how I feel about it.
That's a great way to put it. I learned mine through trading in the markets, day trading, that sort of stuff. Your bias will kill you in trading because you convince yourself that you're right, and you put money where your mouth is, and you don't do that unless you're convinced or you really think you're right. And your bias will kill you because a trade will go against you. It is inevitable. And what are you going to do? Are you going to change like immediately? Like something's happening different than what you thought, or are you going to ride it? And that will kill you more often than not. You'll just fade away. Your money will leave. Trading taught me more about bias and how wired I am than anything I've ever experienced in my life. Really thankful for that, even though I don't really make much money doing it, but I'm really thankful for what it's taught me about myself.
Well, funny you should say that. I mean, it seems like in a lot of cases when money is involved, you eventually either teach yourself to avoid your own biases or force yourself to avoid those biases. Because, I was listening to another documentary of some kind, and they were talking about you can actually bet on the elections.
Oh, yeah.
And the bookies, the way they set up, if this person win, you get so much, there's a coefficient that multiplies what you bet, and that's how much money you get back. And, the candidate's more likely to win has the lower coefficient because their chance of winning is higher. So, it's just, I guess, how betting works. And by looking at the coefficients that they place on different candidates, I guess the betting industry has a pretty good track record of predicting who the next president is going to be. I'd be curious to see what they have to say about this election.
Yeah, I haven't seen any headlines on that type of topic before. There was a website out that allowed you to do that, make a bet on all kinds of different topics. And you would just be betting with an opposing party who was also making the opposite bet, and you would find a price in between the two, and the winner would take all the money. But it closed down, but it did a really good job of forecasting or providing a signal of where sentiment was on any particular topic that they were covering.
Yeah, they mentioned the websites that they were talking about where people bet on these things, but for the life of me, I can't think of it right now. I mean, it's been, probably a year since I read about that.
That is all the time we have for you this week. This has been the Hoosier Humanist Hour. Be sure to check out FreeThought Fort Wayne on Facebook and on Meetup.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope your days are filled with logic, reasoning, and the eternal quest for knowledge.